Hi there, my name is Ewan Nicholson. Welcome to my YouTube channel, Remembering Love. This is a channel where we explore healing childhood trauma, CPTSD, and all the various things in and around that. And we also look at the cultural and social issues surrounding that healing process, which is what we're going to be looking at today. So the title and subject of today's video is how porn has normalized being a peeping Tom, and how that encourages, primes, and entrains men for sexual assault and rape. So to do this, I'm going to be going over a number of different things. I'm going to be looking at what is a peeping Tom and why, from a police perspective, peeping Toms are very problematic. How porn has taken over that job and allowed people to become their own peeping Toms without taking the risk of venturing outside. And I'd like to look at how that process of being a digital peeping Tom encourages, supports, and helps rationalize sexual assault by men against women. So I'm going to be piecing all that together in this video. Now, the question is, what is a peeping Tom? Now, I was telling my daughters, my 16 and 17-year-old daughters, about doing this video. They've never heard of a peeping Tom. Now, when I grew up in the 80s, peeping Toms were a kind of relatively common thing, like flashes, where men would just sort of flash, heavy breathers on the phone. We had one of those when we were kids. Someone would just ring up and breathe heavily into our phone. Now, a lot of that phenomena seems to have gone away. I think the same with peeping Toms, and that may be related to what we're going to discuss today. But if you don't know what a peeping Tom is, it's a person, a male, that will sneak into someone's garden and try peer through their window in order to get sexually gratified, looking for a woman getting undressed, someone having sex, whatever it may be. It's a voyeur that is getting sexually aroused and getting their kicks from the anonymity of watching someone and them not knowing that they're being watched, and just watching someone getting, undressed or whatever it may be. And that is a peeping Tom. Now, despite the fact that, there's a lot of films that make peeping Toms just out to be, innocent things teenagers do, there's actually a great video that examines how dangerous this perspective is on Pop Culture Detective. I'll put a link in the description. And despite the fact that, in movies it's considered to be sort of like not a creepy thing, in reality it's very creepy. The idea that someone would be staring through our window watching my wife get undressed or my kids get undressed is very disturbing, and rightfully so. And within the police, they view peeping Toms as very problematic because they see it as part of a spectrum at the beginning of a process. So in the same way that if a teenager is caught torturing animals, that can be an indicator that they may be moving towards sociopathy or psychopathy. In the same way, if someone gets caught being a peeping Tom, that could point to them at the beginning of a progression towards sexual assault. So they see peeping Toms is not a benign kind of silly thing. It's actually the beginning of a voyeuristic objectification and way of getting sexually satisfied that has got nothing, that is completely non-relational. So what we see now is when you look at that act of being that creepy, gross act of someone sneaking into your garden and peering through your window in order to get to beat one off, that process has now been outsourced online. Because if we examine pornography and the act of watching pornography, it is very much the same as a peeping Tom. But unlike peeping Toms, where there is some limit to what they can see, there's limits to where they can go, there's restrictions on what they can access, the internet and the pornography industry provides no restrictions. Everything, anything you want to be a peeping Tom to observe, you can. And ultimately what a peeping Tom is someone who's watching something, getting sexually aroused, climaxing and gratified without any interaction from the person they're watching, which is exactly what pornography is. There's a complete non-participation. And instead of a window of someone's house, it's the window of a phone or a screen. And never before in human history has so much of our sexual force and energy and identity being kind of corralled down this very disturbing, strange and abnormal path where our sexuality is really kind of being steered in a way, particularly young men's sexuality, that's got nothing to do with the relational nature of sexual experience and sexual engagement. And where before peeping toms was relegated to some fringe sexual deviants or people with serious psychological issues, now it is just normalized. To watch someone having sex on your video screen and to get off that is considered just part of being a young man or part of the experience of growing up or whatever it may be. Everyone does it, and it's been completely normalized. And this is very dangerous for a number of different reasons. Now, you can watch a lot of videos on why this is bad from a neurological point of view. Andrew Herberman, there's a website called Your Brain on Porn that points to the impact that has on our dopamine, our hormonal system, that we're just not evolutionarily built for this type of sexual engagement and this kind of sexual activity. So that tells you how bad it is from a neurological perspective. If you read Gail Dines and Porn is the New Drug and Porn Harms from a feminist perspective, an understanding of how it objectifies women, how it exploits women, how it's all sorts of terrible things from that view. But today I'm going to be looking at it kind of a little bit adjacent to that Gail Dines Porn Harms view, which is from a sociological point of view. First of all, just how really utterly odd it is. That this is normalized in itself is very weird and very strange because it's such an abnormal, unusual phenomena relative to human history. But also that the fact that there's this non-engaging relationship and the implications that has for priming and entraining men to sexually assault. And I'd like to explain how and why that is. Because what should happen in our sexual relationships is it's an interactive dynamic. I like someone, I'm sexually attracted to someone, let's say I work with them or I go to college with them or something like that, and we develop a little bit of friendship, a little bit of flirtation. They seem to like me and I can feel that interest or attraction from them to me, and I like them, and then we have a coffee, we go out, and there's a mutual chemistry. And at some point, somewhere in that dynamic, we end up having sex or we're sexual together. And that's generally how sexual dynamics go. Now, mind you, that can happen very quickly. You can go to a nightclub and that same kind of exchange can occur. It can build up more in a friendship and a relationship, but nonetheless, the basics of I'm sexually attracted to you, you're sexually attracted to me, and then we end up together. What pornography does and the digital peeping tom, it's my sexual arousal and my sexual interest has nothing to do with you. You're a third party that has no idea of my existence. Like, you have no relationship to me. I don't need to know how you feel. I don't need to know how you think. I don't need to even know your name. I don't need to know anything about you. You're just an object for my desire. And your feelings, your story, your life, anything about you, my sexual attraction towards you has got nothing to do with your sexual attraction towards me, because you don't have any. Because just like the peeping tom, you're not even aware of my existence. And what occurs is that if people are engaged in this type of peeping tomism, this type of voyeurism, this constant invoking their sexual force with no relationship between that and the person on the other end of it, then that primes them for what it is to commit sexual assault or rape. Because ultimately what rape is you having sex with someone who doesn't want to have sex with you. And what you've been doing through all the time of using pornography is practicing that. Practicing getting sexually aroused and climaxing with no relationship to how that other person feels, no consideration or care. It's just like a non-issue. And this is what's occurring. And it isn't to say everyone who watches pornography will become a rapist. I'm not claiming that. I've consumed pornography and I'm not a rapist. But it must be and is, for the volume of pornography consumed and the amount of men consuming that pornography, having an impact on how they relate to women. How can it not? And rape is the worst, and murder is the worst end of that spectrum. But at the lower end of that spectrum is just this view that men will develop towards women, from them being objects, from them being demeaned, that their feelings aren't important. It embodies a lot of the Andrew Tate, and the fact that he got done for trafficking cam girls, or even if you don't think he trafficked them, he's involved in pornography, that it all fits in this picture of this hostile, antagonistic, unkind and uncaring view towards women. And we really need to see how dangerous and pernicious this phenomena of digital peeping toms really is. And if you really want to understand how disturbing this is, all we have to do is imagine this wasn't online. Imagine this really did happen in real life, that every single night the sun went down and suddenly hordes of young teenage boys, all the way up to grown men, were roaming the streets, jumping in people's gardens, all looking at windows, all trying to get off on finding someone having sex or getting undressed. How just disturbing that would be. The streets filled with men looking in windows all together and then scurrying off like rats back to the house like it hadn't happened. How gross is that? How disturbing that would be. But that is exactly what's going on. And the fact that it's all digital, we're removed from the psychological phenomena of what's occurring. Is sexual energy and desire and climax is all happening without any interaction from another person. How disturbing that is. And just how weird pornography is in itself. That if I was having sex with my wife or someone I've had sex in the past and there was a bunch of people watching, that would feel really creepy. And not only watching, coming up and having like a real good look right at where all the genitals are banging up against each other, which is what pornography does, or zooming in on some part of the act. It would be very odd and disconcerting. And I'd be like, what the hell's going on here? Or if I was doing that. It's such a strange phenomena that we wouldn't do it in real life. I wouldn't get sexually aroused by sitting in a bedroom watching someone have sex. And I certainly wouldn't feel comfortable if I was having sex and someone was watching me, or a group of people watching, or thousands of people watching me. Not just watching me, let's be clear, they're masturbating. They're getting sexually off on watching me. It's very odd, yet it's just become normalized. It's just part of the culture. It's become mainstream. And this is a problem. And it's a problem for a lot of different reasons. But one particular reason that I've looked at today is that it unnaturally and never before in history has our sexual relationships had nothing to do with the other person. Except in the cases of rape. And this is where Sadiya Khan, the psychologist that was on Soft White Underbelly, did an interview, and she calls sex work and pornography a type of rape loophole, where you're participating in a type of rape and a type of sexual assault, but you found this loophole for your own conscience because technically I'm not doing it. And for someone who's consumed pornography, it's very confronting to feel like, am I participating in a rape loophole? But if we're really honest with ourselves, that's exactly what's occurring. That's exactly what's happening. And we have to be really honest with ourselves and each other and not to normalize this, to see that it is very destructive and a very detrimental thing to our social culture. And part of the reason I'm talking about this on this channel is when it comes to healing childhood trauma, we have to look at the cultural influences that support us in doing that and the cultural influences that undermine us in that process. That's where another video I looked at smartphones and healing CPTSD and that kind of negative effect smartphones can have. This is another effect. Because if you're using pornography, it's working against you. But if you're a woman who doesn't use pornography, you may be dealing with men or your own sons that are, and it's affecting you even if you don't know it. So this is something I think we have to be really sort of honest with and upfront about, that this is a very dangerous phenomena, a destructive phenomena, and we have to push up against it. And I would encourage you that if you are using pornography to really have a good, hard think about it and to really be honest with yourself about what's really going on. And if you know someone that's kind of involved in pornography or involved in using pornography, to really support them and help them understand how destructive this is not a benign thing. This is not just a silly thing teenagers do. That whole kind of idea, like, a teenage stealing his dad's Playboy kind of thing, we're well past that. We are well past that. So, look, I hope this has made sense. I hope this is registered and resonated with you. If you've got any comments or insight on this, please put in the comments below. Take care, look after yourself, and